My dear friends, do you know that one simple habit can change the entire direction of your life? One decision, 1 hour, can be the difference between mediocrity and greatness. And that one habit is waking up at 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., when most of the world is still asleep, there is a silence that cannot be bought, a stillness that cannot be found in the middle of the day, and a calmness that no amount of wealth or success can ever give. This time has a very special quality because it is free from the noise of traffic, free from the constant ringing of phones, and free from the endless demands of people around us. At this hour, your mind is untouched by the chaos of the world. It is like a clean canvas on which you can paint your most powerful thoughts. Imagine standing by a lake early in the morning. The water is so still that it perfectly reflects the sky above, every star, every cloud, every movement. But if you go later in the day, that same lake is disturbed, ripples everywhere, boats moving, noise filling the space. The mind is just like that. At 4 a.m. it is a still lake, clear, sharp, and reflective. As the day moves on, the lake gets disturbed. This is why great thinkers, saints, poets, and leaders have used these early hours to do their most important work. They understood that stillness is not a weakness. Stillness is power. In this sacred silence, ideas flow more easily, creativity blooms without resistance, and solutions that seemed impossible yesterday suddenly appear simple. The early hours act as a bridge between the physical and the spiritual world, giving you access to insights that are difficult to receive during the rush of the day. You begin to notice your own thoughts more clearly, your emotions more calmly, and your purpose more deeply. Waking up at this time does not just give you more hours, it gives you more awareness of yourself. The power of stillness is not about doing more, but about becoming more mindful, more intentional, and more aligned with your higher purpose. When you embrace this silence, you realize that true strength is not in constant movement, but in the depth of quiet reflection. At 4 a.m., there is something mystical happening in the atmosphere that cannot be explained only through science, because it touches the soul on a much deeper level. This time is often called Brahma Muhurta, the time of God, the hour when nature is in its purest state and the vibrations of the universe are calm, sacred, and filled with divine energy. It is believed that during these early hours, when the stars are still visible and the first light of dawn has not yet broken, the distance between you and the divine becomes smaller. The distractions of the day have not yet started. Your mind is not yet burdened with tasks, and your heart is not yet troubled by the demands of the world. In that quiet sacredness, you can hear the whisper of your soul, and you can speak to God without noise interrupting the conversation. When you sit for meditation or prayer at this hour, the depth of concentration you can achieve is extraordinary. The silence around you acts as a cocoon, and your mind finds it easier to settle down. The words of your prayer feel more sincere. The rhythm of your breathing feels more natural, and the awareness of your own self becomes sharper. Many spiritual masters throughout history have insisted on rising at this time, not because of discipline alone, but because of the divine quality of the energy that surrounds the world before sunrise. It is as if heaven itself opens a window, inviting you to connect. When you bow your head, when you chant, when you read sacred texts, when you simply sit in gratitude, you feel a connection that cannot be replicated at any other time of the day. This hour allows you to align your inner world with the greater universal world. Just as a musician tunes an instrument before playing, you tune your soul with the vibrations of the divine. And when your soul is tuned early in the morning, the entire day becomes a symphony of balance, peace, and purpose. The anger you may have felt yesterday loses its power over you. The worries that weighed heavily seem lighter. The uncertainties of life no longer feel frightening. Why? Because you touch something eternal, something sacred, something that gave you strength from within. When you consistently wake up at 4 a.m. and use that time for spiritual connection, you are not just waking up to a new day, you are waking up to a higher version of yourself. When you rise at 4 a.m., your mind is like freshly fallen snow, untouched, pure, and without the footprints of stress or distraction. This early hour gives you a mental sharpness that you cannot experience once the day begins to pull you in 100 different directions. Normally, when the sun rises and people wake up, there are calls, messages, responsibilities, and noise everywhere. Your mind becomes like a crowded marketplace where everyone is shouting and you cannot hear your own thoughts clearly. But at 4 a.m., that marketplace is closed. Instead, you are standing in an empty hall where every word echoes, every thought becomes powerful, and every idea feels alive. This clarity is a gift, and if you learn to use it, you will discover insights that can shape the rest of your day. Many of the greatest discoveries, inventions, and works of art were not born in chaos, but in still moments of focus. When you wake early, your brain operates at a higher level because it has rested, it has no distractions, and it is functioning in its purest state. This is why writers find inspiration in the early morning, why students who study before dawn remember more, and why thinkers and leaders prefer those hours to design their visions. You become sharper, quicker, and more creative, not because you suddenly gained intelligence, but because you removed the layers of noise that usually cloud it. Just as a diamond shines when the dirt around it is removed, your mind sparkles when the dust of distraction is absent. There is also a scientific side to this. At this hour, the mind is calm, stress hormones are lower, and focus hormones like serotonin and dopamine work in harmony. Your memory is sharper, your concentration deeper, and your creativity flows with less resistance. Imagine trying to write a letter in a moving train. It is shaky, hard to focus, and you make mistakes. But writing that same letter on a steady desk allows your handwriting to be neat and your words to be clear. The mind at 4 a.m. is that steady desk. It gives you stability, precision, and strength to think in ways you cannot think later in the day. This mental sharpness is not just about work or study. It is also about decision making. How many times have you made poor choices because your mind was tired, distracted, or emotional? When you start your day with a clear and sharp mind, you set the tone for wise decisions. You respond instead of reacting, you create instead of complaining, and you focus instead of being pulled in every direction. That sharpness is like the blade of a sword. If the sword is dull, it cannot cut through anything. But when the sword is sharpened, it slices through even the toughest obstacles. Your mind is that sword, and waking up at 4 a.m. is the sharpening stone. When you begin your day at 4 a.m., You are not only strengthening your mind and spirit, you are also giving your body the greatest gift of alignment with nature. The human body is deeply connected to the rhythms of the universe. Just as the sun rises and sets, just as the moon follows its cycle, our body too has an internal clock that functions best when it works in harmony with nature. Waking up before sunrise allows your body to reset itself, to breathe in pure oxygen, to feel the freshness of the morning air, and to restore its energy in the most natural way. The early morning atmosphere carries more oxygen, the air is lighter and cleaner, and your lungs expand more deeply when you breathe at that time. This increases vitality, strengthens immunity, and fills you with a sense of freshness that no amount of coffee or artificial energy boosters can provide. When you wake up late, your body often feels sluggish, heavy, and resistant to movement. But when you rise at 4 a.m., your metabolism is activated earlier, your digestive system becomes stronger, and your energy lasts longer throughout the day. Ayurveda and ancient sciences describe this time as the most powerful phase for balancing the body's systems. The hormones that regulate growth, repair, and immunity are at their peak in the early hours. This is why exercises, yoga, or even a simple walk at that time have magnified effects. 10 minutes of breathing exercises in the stillness of dawn can do more for your lungs than an hour of exercise later in the day. This habit also protects your body from illnesses caused by stress and irregular routines. Most health problems today are not because of lack of resources, but because of lack of rhythm. We eat at the wrong times, sleep at the wrong times, and expect our body to function like a machine. But the body is not a machine, it is a living, breathing creation that thrives on balance. Waking up at 4 a.m. gives your body the balance it craves. It ensures that you sleep deeply at night. It enhances your digestion by aligning meal times properly, and it strengthens your immunity by keeping your hormones in rhythm. And beyond the science, there is something deeper. When you are awake at this hour and you take care of your health through stretching, walking, or meditation, you are telling your body, I value you, I respect you, I am grateful for you. That gratitude itself improves health. Stress begins to melt, tension in the muscles relaxes, and your heart beats more steadily. You feel lighter, calmer, and more alive. A healthy body is not just about living longer. It is about living stronger, living with energy, and living with the capacity to serve and achieve. Waking up at 4 a.m. helps you build that foundation. It transforms your body from being your burden into being your companion on the journey of life. Discipline is the bridge that carries a person from where they are to where they want to be. And waking up at 4 a.m. is one of the most powerful disciplines you can ever adopt. At first it feels uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, because the body resists what it is not used to. But with time, the very act of rising early shapes your character. It trains your mind to follow your command rather than allowing your emotions to dictate your actions. When the alarm rings at 4 a.m., your body whispers, sleep a little more, but your higher self replies, rise, because my purpose is greater than my comfort. That conversation, repeated every morning, becomes the very foundation of inner strength. Think about it, every great achievement in life, whether spiritual or material, rests upon discipline. A student who excels in studies is not necessarily more intelligent, but more disciplined in study habits. A musician who masters an instrument is not born with that mastery, but builds it with years of disciplined practice. A saint who radiates wisdom is not born enlightened, but molds his mind through years of disciplined living. In the same way, when you discipline yourself to wake at 4 a.m., you are training yourself for greater battles in life. If you can conquer the bed, you can conquer anything. The small victory of rising early becomes the seed of greater victories in career, relationships, and spiritual growth. Discipline is not about restriction, it is about liberation. The undisciplined person is a slave to mood, to desire, to laziness, to distractions. But the disciplined person is free because they are not controlled by fleeting feelings, but by chosen values. When you rise early every day, you are telling yourself, I will not be controlled by comfort, I will be guided by purpose. That decision makes you powerful because it creates consistency, and consistency is the secret ingredient behind all success. The world does not reward occasional effort, it rewards consistent effort. And consistency is impossible without discipline. This habit also teaches patience. The results of waking up at 4 a.m. are not seen overnight. The first few days you may feel tired. The first week you may feel it is too difficult. But as you continue, your body adjusts, your mind becomes stronger, and you start seeing the difference. This process itself is a reminder that in life, true results take time, and patience is born through disciplined living. You begin to value persistence over quick fixes, endurance over temporary motivation. Ultimately, discipline shapes destiny. When you choose discipline, you are choosing the long road, the hard road, but the meaningful road. Waking at 4 a.m. is not just about getting up early. It is about declaring to yourself that you are ready to take charge of your life, that you are willing to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term greatness. And when that habit is deeply rooted, your destiny starts to shift, because life always rewards those who live with discipline. When you rise at 4 a.m., you give yourself a gift that very few people in the world ever experience. The gift of uninterrupted time to invest in yourself. The truth is, once the day begins, the demands of others start pulling you in every direction. Family, work, responsibilities, social obligations, all of them require your attention, and by the end of the day, you often realize you have given to everyone but yourself. But when you wake before the world, you carve out sacred hours that belong only to you. These are the hours where you can focus on growth, on learning, on reflection, on becoming a better version of yourself without anyone disturbing you. Think of how different your life would be if every single morning you spent time reading wisdom that expanded your mind, writing down your thoughts that clarified your vision, or learning new skills that opened doors for your future. In those early hours, your mind absorbs knowledge like a sponge because it is free from distraction and filled with freshness. A book you read at night when you are tired may take days to understand, but the same book read at 4 a.m. becomes alive with meaning, and the lessons sink deep into your heart. Journaling at this time helps you process your emotions, release your worries, and set your intentions clearly. You begin to notice patterns in your thoughts, strengths in your character, and areas where you must grow. By the time the world wakes up, you already know who you are, and what you are striving for. This time can also be invested in planning your day with intention. Instead of rushing into tasks blindly, you design your hours with clarity. You decide what matters most, what deserves your energy, and what must be left aside. This practice makes you productive not by working more, but by working with purpose. Imagine a sailor setting out on the sea without checking his compass. He may row all day, but end up nowhere meaningful. The early morning is your compass checking time. It ensures you don't just move, but move in the right direction. Even more powerful is the opportunity to connect with your inner self through meditation, reflection, or silence. These practices heal you from within, increase your resilience, and build your capacity to face challenges calmly. You no longer live in reaction, you live in intention. By nurturing yourself in these hours, you show up stronger for everyone else later. You give not from emptiness, but from fullness. You serve not from exhaustion, but from strength. When you dedicate the early morning to self-improvement, you are making a statement to life itself. I value growth over comfort. I value purpose over laziness. I value becoming over remaining the same. That decision, repeated daily, transforms not only your mornings, but your entire life. In time, you realize that success is not built in big leaps, but in these small, quiet hours of consistent growth. What you do at 4 a.m. may seem invisible to the world, but eventually, it becomes visible in the way you think, the way you act, the way you live, and the way you inspire others. When you rise at 4 a.m. and embrace the silence of the morning, you are not just strengthening your body and mind, you are also nurturing your heart. Emotional stability is something we all seek, but few ever truly experience, because our lives are filled with constant noise, comparison, and pressure. The world we live in is always demanding. People expect, situations change, and uncertainties keep shaking us. By the time most people wake up, they're already entering into a storm of deadlines, notifications, traffic, and responsibilities. Their mind becomes restless before the day has even begun. But those who wake at 4 a.m. give themselves a powerful shield, a calmness that cannot be easily broken, because they have already centered themselves before the world tries to pull them apart. The silence of the early morning has a healing quality. It gives you a space to breathe without hurry, to feel without judgment, to think without pressure. When you meditate, pray, or simply sit quietly at this hour, your emotions begin to settle, like dust in a glass of water that slowly sinks to the bottom. Worries that felt overwhelming yesterday lose their grip on you. Negative emotions such as anger, envy, or fear start dissolving in the presence of stillness. You begin to see problems from a wider perspective, and that perspective brings peace. Instead of reacting impulsively to every challenge during the day, you respond thoughtfully because you are rooted in calmness. Waking up at 4 a.m. also reduces the rush that creates unnecessary stress. When you wake late, everything feels urgent. You rush to get ready, you rush to complete tasks, you rush through the day. That rushing builds irritation, and irritation leads to conflict. But when you wake before the world, you move through your morning with patience, with intention, and with grace. That patience spills over into the rest of your day, influencing how you speak to others, how you handle difficulties, and how you carry yourself. Emotional stability is not about never feeling upset. It is about not being controlled by those emotions, and this discipline helps you achieve that balance. Science also supports this truth. The hormones that govern mood and stress are at their lowest disturbance in the early hours. When you rise early, you give yourself time to regulate these hormones through breathing, reflection, and positive activity. Instead of starting your day by consuming the chaos of news and social media, you start it by consuming peace. That choice alone can transform the quality of your emotions. A person who begins the day with gratitude and silence carries a very different energy compared to someone who begins the day with hurry and complaints. Over time, this practice creates resilience. Life will never be free of challenges, loss, disappointment, and conflict will always exist. But the one who rises early and nourishes their emotional well-being learns to remain steady in the middle of storms. You become like a tree whose roots run so deep that no matter how strong the winds blow, you may sway, but you will not fall. Emotional stability is the hidden strength behind true leadership, deep relationships, and lasting happiness. And waking up at 4 a.m. gives you the ground on which to build that strength every single day. When you rise at 4 a.m., you unlock one of the most precious treasures of life, extra time. Every person on this earth is given the same 24 hours, no more and no less. Yet some people seem to accomplish so much, while others always complain they don't have enough time. The difference is not in the number of hours, but in how those hours are used. When you wake early, you expand your day in a way that feels as though you have been gifted with additional hours. What others try to squeeze into a crowded day, you have already begun before the world stirs. This sense of extra time is not just about productivity, it is about power, focus, and freedom. Imagine starting your morning 2 or 3 hours ahead of everyone else. While most are still asleep, you are already reading, reflecting, exercising, praying, or working on meaningful projects. By the time the city wakes up, you are ahead. You carry with you the confidence of already having achieved something valuable while others are still yawning and rushing. This head start builds momentum, and momentum is one of the greatest allies of success. Once you begin your day with progress, it becomes much easier to carry that energy into the rest of your tasks. Instead of being dragged by the day, you are leading it. The productivity of early mornings is also amplified by the absence of distraction. During the day, every minute is competed for by phone calls, messages, emails, and obligations. But in those quiet early hours, your focus is uninterrupted. A task that may take 3 hours in the afternoon can often be completed in 1 hour at dawn because your mind is sharper, the world is quieter, and your concentration is deeper. That efficiency multiplies your results. It's not just about working longer, it's about working smarter and more effectively. There is also a psychological power in knowing that you are using your time wisely. When you wake up late, you often start the day with regret or guilt, feeling behind before you even begin. That negativity weighs you down and reduces your energy. But when you wake at 4 a.m., you feel proud, purposeful, and disciplined. That positive energy flows into everything you do, making you more attentive, more engaged, and more motivated. You begin to carry a sense of control over your time, and when you control your time, you control your life. The gift of extra hours also allows you to balance your life more beautifully. You find time not only for work, but for personal growth, relationships, and rest. Many people sacrifice health, family, or spirituality because they claim they don't have time. But those who rise early discover that there is time for everything that truly matters. The hours before sunrise become a sacred space where you can invest in all areas of life without conflict. This habit eventually transforms your relationship with time itself. Instead of seeing time as an enemy that always runs out, you begin to see it as a friend that can be shaped and directed. You realize that every morning at 4 a.m. is like being handed a gift, an opportunity to create, to grow, to plan, to connect. Those who seize that gift again and again eventually create lives of impact and meaning, while those who let it slip away wonder why life feels rushed, shallow, and incomplete. Throughout history, when we study the lives of the people who have left behind extraordinary footprints, whether they were saints, sages, philosophers, inventors, or leaders, we find a striking similarity. Most of them valued the early hours of the morning. They understood something that many people overlook today, that the quality of your morning determines the quality of your life. Great spiritual teachers would rise before the sun, bathing their minds in prayer and meditation, because they knew that this was the hour when the soul could connect most deeply with the divine. Poets, writers, and artists often created their finest works in these hours when the world was quiet and their imagination was alive. Leaders of nations and visionaries in business carved out their strategies in the stillness of dawn because they knew that their sharpest thoughts came when others were still lost in sleep. The pattern is clear. Greatness has always had a close relationship with early rising. Consider saints and sages. Their day would begin with silence, with chanting, with meditation. They understood that spiritual growth is not something you add to your life later. It is something you cultivate every day, starting from the first hour. Now think of thinkers like Benjamin Franklin, who believed in waking early and famously said, "Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." Or leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, who began his day before sunrise with prayer and reflection. Or visionaries like Steve Jobs, who would wake early to design his day intentionally. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that when you win the morning, you win the day. And when you win the day consistently, you win your life. When you look at such examples, the message is not that waking at 4 a.m. will make you famous or rich instantly. The message is deeper. Waking early aligns you with the same discipline, clarity, and purpose that shaped the lives of those who achieved extraordinary things. You may not be leading a nation or writing scriptures, but in your own sphere of life, you too can lead with focus, creativity, and wisdom if you embrace the same habits. If saints use this time to grow spiritually, you can use it to deepen your inner peace. If leaders used it to plan their movements, you can use it to plan your goals. If artists used it to create masterpieces, you can use it to create the best version of yourself. The early hours also connect you with a lineage of greatness. Every time you rise at 4 a.m., you are walking on the same path that wise and successful people have walked for centuries. It gives you a sense of belonging, a sense that you are not alone, but part of a tradition of discipline and excellence. That inspiration itself becomes fuel to continue. because you know you are aligning yourself with something timeless. In the end, greatness is not about chance, it is about choice. And choosing to rise early is one of those decisions that may seem small, but has the power to reshape your destiny. The people who built legacies did not wait for the world to hand them success. They disciplined themselves, they valued their mornings, and they invested in themselves before anyone else demanded their energy. By doing the same, you may not only follow in their footsteps, you may leave behind your own path for others to follow. When you rise at 4 a.m. and live with this discipline day after day, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start shaping a life of meaning, a life that outlives you, a life that leaves behind a legacy. Most people live in a cycle of survival. They wake up late, rush through the day, complete tasks, and repeat the same routine until their time on earth is over. But those who rise early and invest in their body, mind, and spirit are not merely surviving, they are building. They are laying bricks of purpose, one morning at a time, creating a foundation for a life that others will remember, respect, and be inspired by. Think of it this way: every single morning you wake at 4 a.m., you are writing a page in the story of your destiny. One day may not seem significant. One week may not look extraordinary. But over years, those mornings add up into something remarkable. They create a person who has clarity, discipline, health, wisdom, and peace. And such a person becomes a source of light for others. You do not only benefit yourself, you inspire your family, your community, and generations after you, your children, your students, your colleagues, or anyone who watches you will begin to understand that success is not luck, but the result of consistent habits. Your very life becomes a message, a living proof that greatness is possible for anyone who chooses discipline over comfort. Creating a legacy is not about grand monuments or massive wealth. It is about how you live daily and what you leave behind in the hearts of people. When you rise at 4 a.m., you live with intention. You are not wasting your mornings scrolling endlessly or rushing blindly. You are building your character, strengthening your values, and sharpening your vision. Over time, this makes you someone others turn to for guidance. Someone who inspires without speaking, someone whose very presence carries weight. The legacy you create is written not in stone, but in the influence you have on lives around you. And beyond inspiring others, waking early shapes how you see your own life. It teaches you that you are not here by accident, that every day is a gift, and that time should not be wasted. It helps you live with awareness, with gratitude, and with responsibility. You begin to ask bigger questions. What am I here for? How can I serve? How can I contribute something lasting to this world? These are not questions most people ever think about because they are trapped in the rush of the day. But in the stillness of dawn, when the world is quiet, those questions rise, and with them, answers slowly appear. At the end of life, nobody remembers how much you slept or how late you woke. They remember how you lived, how you touched others, how you fulfilled your purpose. Waking at 4 a.m. every day is not just about productivity. It is about aligning your entire being with purpose so that your life becomes meaningful. You are no longer just passing through time, you are shaping time. And when you shape time, you shape legacy. A life lived like this becomes a message to the world that greatness is possible, that discipline builds destiny, and that a meaningful life is built one morning at a time.